On this episode, we dive deep into the world of block sanding, and we teach you why it is so important to use a guide coat to read your panels while you're block sanding. Are you ready to learn something? Let's go.
So you can see we have a few different varieties of blocks. These are actually really well. They're nice to hold. As you can see, they're used. And they're just a little bit of a thicker of an acrylic block. That's going to give us our very straight surface. And these are the same concept. They have a little bit of flex in them, but not much. But they're just a little bit different of a hold. Sometimes you get into certain areas where it's hard to get this in there because the back is so big, but it feels good. So you kind of have to adapt and just, use what you have. Fortunately, we have a little bit of a variety, and we can get into tight little spots with these guys, little corners with this, and it's just kind of all preference for the most part. But these are going to be the ones that we're gonna finish everything off with, so we have that show finish surface that we're looking for. So, car's going black, it's got to be flat.
So as you've seen in previous episodes, we ran a glaze coat of body filler on the entire surface of the El Camino. Once we blocked that and faired it smooth, we shot the El Camino with 4 coats of high build black primer. The X pattern on this vehicle is just spray can gray primer, and this is used as a guide coat. A guide coat is a product that is sprayed on the vehicle, usually in an opposite color of the primer, and it's only a visual reference as we block sand the panels. Basically a roadmap to block sanding.
It's definitely a long drawn out process, but it's so beneficial to be able to read your panels and understand what's going on underneath them without the shine on it. And guide coat and primer is definitely going to be your best friend in that area, and just show you everything you need to know so you have that overall quality finish.
As Brandon was showing you how to block sand the quarter panel using a 32-inch block and 150 grit sandpaper, I'm going to show you how to easily access the inner section of this wing. This is just PVC pipe wrapped in 150 grit sandpaper, and as I sand this curvature, I'm going to actually roll my PVC pipe as I give 45 to 60 degree strokes in an X pattern. You too can run down to the hardware store, buy yourself a stick of PVC pipe, and cut different lengths, 10-inch, 12-inch, 15-inch, and 18-inch.
All these little black areas are still low, and I can see my block didn't really hit in here. Even up through here, I still have a lot of gloss black, not any gray. I always block it, and then I kind of study what I need to, where I need to sand. I'll jump back into it.
I can see that I have a low area on this cove, but I haven't hit any metal or body filler, so I'm going to keep sanding.
Still got these areas.
So these areas still remain low. I'm going to keep sanding in that 45 degree angle, rolling that block, and keep working these low spots out of this panel.
If I were to just sand in that area, I would have a low spot, I would divot, and it would look wavy when we painted it. So even though I know I have a low spot right there, I have to block sand the whole panel to make everything come down to this level.
A few more minutes of sanding, and I think I finally have this panel ready to go. But how do I really know? A can of wax and grease remover makes a great visual reference. Spray that wax and grease remover evenly on the panel, and then take your eye and look down the side of the panel. If everything looks great, you should be ready for paint.
This thing's gonna rule when it's gloss black. Woo.
All right, here's where we stand on Project Black Ice 59 Elko. We've got the quarter panel sanded on both sides. Doors are both sanded on both sides, and Brandon has that fender finished. This is the last fender here that we're gonna block sand in 150 before we shoot the car again with another round of high build primer. Hence why we still have the masking in place. We can actually lay a new piece of masking over this and not have to mask the whole entire car. So we're trying to sand it while it's still masked up. So here's what I wanted to go over with you guys today. This fender has been skim coated with body filler. It has been primed with high build. And you can see now that we have a black high build primer on here, we've got a couple little minor gouges in the body filler just from the block sanding process. So I'm aware of these. I kind of did an inspection of the fender. So we've got these little areas. We've got a couple pinholes that I've opened up and that will fill with putty glaze. And then there's a couple little grooves down here along the fender well opening, and I want to be sure that we block these out and get these nice and smooth. So we're going to use 150 grit sandpaper on the Big Kid blocks. The other thing I want to talk to you guys about too is that we're finding that these things vary when they show up here to our shop. Brandon the other day found that one of these Big Kid blocks actually had like a curve to it, and it wasn't true, and it had been separating. So even over time, these things do wear out, even though they're plastic or acrylic. So we do want to make sure that they're flush and true and straight. Just like with anything, even if you buy engine components and pistons, you always want to check them, weigh them, make sure everything looks good. So it's important that your blocks are true, because I actually was going to grab the other Big Kid block the other day and start going with it. And Brandon's like, hey, look at that thing, it looks funky. So he saved us. If we would have blocked the car with that big block, it would have been disastrous. So check the blocks. This is what I'm using. I'm going to use a roll of 150 grit. We're using Sunmite sandpaper. This stuff here, this is the company Sunmite. This stuff is pretty inexpensive. It doesn't last quite as long as the 3M Gold, but it's half the price. And we like to go through it and keep it real crisp, so I change out the paper quite often. So let's get into it. We're going to run a tape line on this edge, and we're going to sand starting here. I've already come into the door, from the door to the fender. So I know that this area here is true and straight and matches the door. So now my plan is just to blend all of my sanding from this side all the way to the front headlight bucket. And I'm not going to come up past this body line right here, because I'm going to put a piece of tape on it, make sure that that tape is true right up to the edge, and I'm going to block right to that tape line. Very, very important. We'll get into that in a little while, but let's get to sanding and get this panel looking like the rest of the car. So let's talk about the importance of your body lines and your highlight lines. If you do not protect these lines during the block sanding process, two things are going to happen. The first, you're going to distort the line, and when you paint the car, it's going to look wavy. Second, you're going to soften the line, so when you paint the car, it's going to look weak. Now, when sanding into this cove, like you see here on the front fender, I use my fingers to protect the edge of the block so I don't create a groove. If I sand recklessly and bring the edge of that block into that cove, you can see the groove in the primer instantly. You're at the point where you want to protect every section and panel on this vehicle. Block sanding, it can be disastrous, so take your time, do it the right way, and follow our steps. Okay, so we have our first pass with 150 grit on the Big Kid block, 18 inch, and this is what the panel has revealed. There's a little bit of a low spot right here, and this seems to be really common with a lot of these 50s and 60s Chevrolets around the wheel wells, where this is stamped, and the high peak of the wheel well here, or the crown of the wheel well, there's always a low spot. It also happens on the rear wheel well, in the front and the rear. So block sanding into the wheel well, I know that this area right here is a little bit low. So I've got a low spot here, very slight low spot. You can see a little bit of the remaining groove that was there, but the primer has taken care of that. As I'm block sanding towards the front, the panel starts to curve inward towards the center of the car. So if I were to take my block and follow that curve in, it would change the whole straightness of this panel. So I don't want to push towards the inner part of that front headlight bucket. I want to keep my block flat in the rear and just continue to block it until it doesn't touch anymore. I'm not trying to cover anything up here. I want to bring it out. I want to bring everything to light. I want to find the lows. I want to find the imperfections. And that's kind of a mental game, because like I said, I've seen it a lot where guys will just cheat it. They'll just keep sanding because it looks better. But we want to find every imperfection and every low. I mean, we constantly are checking our work with the spray check, and it makes the panel glossy. So we're going to keep sanding. We're going to get this area flat. Then we're going to transfer down here to the lower fender, and then we'll block sand the line, and then we'll be able to attack the top, and then we're done. So let's do it. Let's go over this whole cheating concept. If I'm block sanding right here, and I'm seeing that the edge of this fender is not sanded, I can come in and turn the block a little bit like this and sand the edge, or I can take the block and hold it up on the edge and watch. I can totally make this disappear, and I can make it look just like all the other panels. It gets sanded and it looks great, and you're gonna think that, oh great, this is gonna look so nice when I paint. But that is cheating yourself. That's not the process of block sanding. So don't cheat the process, and don't cheat yourself. Keep the blocks flat against the panel. Don't ever lift them up to finish the edges of a panel. If the panel changes or has a transition, then switch the block and blend that area into the existing block sanded area. But don't lift your block and take shortcuts. It will only make your paint job wavy and cheap. Take the time and do it right. Like I said before, this is a mental game. It does wear on you, and all you can think about is finishing. But take the time, do it right. So I'm back on the top side of the fender, and notice that my block is overhanging the edge, but I still keep it flat. Back to the golden rule of keeping your block flat. I'm happy with the edge of this highlight line, so I pull the tape and I move towards the peak on the top of the fender. So all I'm going to do now to get ready for the next round of primer, I'm just going to take my sandpaper and I'm just going to scuff it up real light. I don't want to mar that body line, I just want to take the edge down just a tiny bit, just to scuff it so the primer will stick well. Okay, that's it. We've got the body here.
The fender completely ready to go. All the areas have been scuffed and prepped. The wheel well, the body line, the flat panels have been blocked. The upper peak has been blocked. I've scuffed all my edges, so I am ready for primer.
Our first round of block sanding with 150 grit sandpaper and the acrylic blocks is completed. So now let's watch as Brandon wipes the entire vehicle down with a wax and grease remover, blows any remaining dust, and throws 4 more coats of a high build primer. Let's get after it. Hey, thanks for watching. I really hope you took a few things away from this episode and learned a thing or two to add to your arsenal. We'll see you on the next one as we continue to block sand and get this thing ready for paint. So stay with us. We're weeks away from a high gloss, show quality paint job. Thanks for watching. Be sure to subscribe. What's up, everybody? Brian from Mackey's Hot Rod Shop with our YouTube channel, Mackey and Machine. We wanted to say thank you guys for subscribing. The numbers are growing way faster than we ever expected. So a quick overview, we're giving away a box of merchandise for every new 1,000 subscribers. We bundle everybody together, we pick one number, and we send out all this merchandise straight to your door. It's just a way to say thank you, so we really appreciate it. And if you haven't subscribed, do so now, because we're continuing our content in a hot rod shop, bicycles, motorcycles, planes, trains, boats, all of it here on Mackey and Machine. We've got a ton of new content for you guys. The best part of all, real quick, is a 1940 Ford giveaway as soon as we hit 50,000 subscribers. What do you have to do? Hit the subscribe button. That's it. We keep track of everything else. Thank you again. We'll see you on the next one.